Chris Godinez, licensed professional counselor, also the host of We Need to Talk with Chris Godinez on every Sunday here now on YouTube, and I will be posting them over to Facebook. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. If you feel you need a therapist, please go to Google, type in therapy, your city, Psychology Today will pop up, click on that, and it will have all of the therapists in your area. Also, the views and opinions stated herein are mine and mine alone. They do not represent the ACA, the APA, or any other damn therapist for that matter. Boom, shakalaka, done. Okay. So I have had a bunch of questions that I wanted to get answered before the next show. The next show is going to be this Sunday, is going to be on grieving. And it's going to be on the death of the narcissist. So death and the narcissist, basically. So medical hoovers when they have cancer, parents, toxic parents that are dying, things like that. We're going to talk about how to deal with complicated grief. And trust me, it's like if you've had complex post-traumatic stress disorder, you're going to have complicated grief when these people finally exit the mortal coil. So we're going to talk about that on Sunday. Okay, let's see. Let me get all of the stuff out of the way. So if you are interested in purchasing a cup, you can order them on eBay. I have them on eBay if you would like me to ship them to you. These are lovely 20-ounce coffee mugs. They have the logo on them. Go ahead, go to eBay, order them because I'd like to get them out of my living room. All right, there is that. Also, if you are interested in purchasing my books, they are both available on Amazon. And they are both available on Audible too. So, and I did the narration for them because they're my books and I would rather do the narration. So anyway, there is that. So, and I have a very talented voice actor on this one too. So anyway, these books are available on Amazon. They're available on Audible. So there it is. All right, let's get to the questions. After working on the Inner Child Workbook, I've become aware that I was the golden child for one parent and the scapegoat for another. It's very confusing. Could you address this in one of your future talks? It's a lot to process. Okay, so not every parent is going to, especially if there are two toxic parents, they're not going to necessarily have you play the same role for them because they're two different people. So if they're toxic, one will need you to be whatever they need you to be, and the other one will need you to be whatever they need you to be. So it's not uncommon to have one parent have the kid be the golden child and one parent have the kid be the scapegoat. It just depends on what the particular peccadillo is of these toxic parents. And oftentimes what it'll be is that if one of them has got a mommy or a daddy issue, they will go after the kid of that particular sex. So in other words, you may be the golden child to the same sex parent, but you may be the scapegoat to the opposite sex parent. It depends on what's going on, or vice versa. It just depends on what's going on with these people. And it is very confusing. It is to kids because it's like, why am I good to this parent, but I'm not good enough to this parent? I don't understand what's happening. This is common. This is what toxic parents do. Healthy, normal parents have kids and they don't try to put them into boxes. Kids are kids. Kids are going to be who they are, but toxic parents can't cope with that. They need the kid to play a role. It's a scripted role that's already in their head, and there's nothing that kid can do to get out of that role. It's kind of like they're stuck. They're absolutely stuck, and that's not okay. And that's what toxic parents do. So yeah, it is very common for one parent, if they're both toxic, for one parent to have them be the golden child, and for the other parent to have them be the scapegoat or some other role, because they have to have roles because it makes life a lot easier for them. Because in a healthy, normal family, you roll. You just roll with the punches. You roll with whatever's going on. You don't stick people into boxes. You kind of go, okay, well, now we're going to do this. Okay. You don't try to make somebody always be the golden child or always be the scapegoat, but toxic parents do. So that's what's going on. It has nothing to do with the kid. It has everything to do with the toxic parents. So there is that question. So it is confusing. It is nothing to do with the kid. It has everything to do with the parent. So basically what it is you recognize the game. Okay, dad or mom had me be the scapegoat. Dad or mom had me be the golden child. This is their issue, not mine. You work on you. You just keep working on you. You recognize the dysfunction. You figure out the dysfunction. It's like, oh, geez, okay, well, mom and dad had alcoholic parents, or there was abuse going on, or there was something going on, and so this is why they are the way they are. That doesn't excuse it. It does explain it. And then you just keep working on you. You don't have to follow these roles that they have shoved onto you. So I hope that answered that question. Okay. Next one. Hello. Okay. One problem many women face, and men too, is job sabotage or being gaslighted into not working for years. What is the best way to handle things like gaps in employment without explaining the real reason you failed to thrive career-wise? Well, okay, so abusers want the target of abuse to not have a job, usually. Abusers will also not work and force the target of abuse to be the sole provider so that they can't stop working, so that they're working multiple jobs. So abusers do all sorts of stuff financially to their target of abuse. So if they have created a situation where the target cannot go to work, so they sabotage them having a car, they sabotage them having transportation in some way, shape, or form. They, when the target does get a job, the abuser comes unglued and says, no, I don't like the hours, you're working too much, you're not spending enough time with me, blah, 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 blah. And then the target of abuse quits the job and is stuck at home and has absolutely no financial means to get the hell out. That's exactly what an abuser wants. So I am always warning people, if your paramour, if your romantic partner is not contributing to the relationship financially, that's a huge red flag, because the flip side of not having them work is the abuser will stop working, or the abuser will never contribute to the relationship at all in any way, shape, or form. They will not pay half the rent. They will not pay half the groceries. They will not pay half their own insurance or their own car stuff or whatever. And they'll make the target of abuse pay for everything. And they'll use guilt to make the target of abuse pay for everything and work themselves into an early grave. So either one of those situations is financial abuse. And this is what abusers do. So if you have gaps in your resume, yes, employers are going to ask, why weren't you working? Well, you don't want to suddenly become, diarrhea of the mouth and tell them, oh, well, I was in this horribly abusive relationship and da-da-da-da-da. Employers, my Freudian slip is showing. Employers don't care, so, and neither do abusers. So what you want to do is you just want to say, well, I was a stay-at-home mom, or I was a stay-at-home dad, or I was, I took some time off. I needed a break, and now I'm okay. And so I just needed a break. So, or something. You don't necessarily want to say I was in an abusive relationship and they wouldn't let me work, but you want to say something like, well, I chose to take a break. And that's all you need to say. And honestly, legally, they can't really ask much more than that, because it's none of their goddamn business. So you just come up with something. You don't have to tell them the whole truth. You can just say, I took a break, and then that's it. You don't need to be, diarrhea of the mouth and tell them everything that's happening. So yeah, it does make it hard, because employers do look for consistent employment, and they might not be aware of what they can and cannot ask. So it's always a good idea to, find out what can they legally ask, what can they not legally. Like, they can't ask you how old you are. They can't ask you, things like that. And when they do look up referrals or references, all they can ask is, did this person work for you or not? They cannot legally ask, would you hire them again? Would you da-da-da-da-da? So know your rights. Know your rights when you go in to look for a job. It's really important to know what they can and cannot ask. And then when you do have to respond to a question like that, you can be evasive without lying. I took a break. I just, life circumstances, I had to take a break, so I took a break. That's all you need to say. It's none of their fucking business. So yeah, and really, it's like, sell yourself on your qualities, your strengths. So how do I explain this? When you go in for an interview, you are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. If they get onto a topic that you don't want to talk about, you can flip it and have them go on to something else. It's like, well, I took a break, but here are my strengths that I know that I have, and da-da-da. See where I'm going with that? It's like I took a break, and then boom, here are my strengths. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what here's how I can benefit your company. So remember, you always want to phrase it as, how you can benefit their company, because that's really what they're looking for. So don't get hung up on that. Yeah, they are going to ask probably, but you just keep going. It's like, yeah, I took a break, and what I realized is I really missed working in this industry and da 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 da. So that's what you do with that. Okay. I hate that I have to keep opening this up. Hang on. Yeah, so what you do is you acknowledge the fact that there was a break in employment, but you go right into, this is why I missed working, and I realized in this gap that I missed this particular industry, and I know that I can be a benefit to your company because I have all this experience, and I know that I'm good with people, and blah, 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 whatever. So that's basically what you do. You don't have to tell them, hey, I was in an abusive relationship and my partner literally kept me from leaving the house. You don't need to do that. You can just say, yeah, there was a break, and here's how I can benefit your company. So that's what you want to do with that one. Okay. Let's see. Here's a long one. Okay, so apparently there's somebody on YouTube that is saying that borderline personality disorder can have schizophrenic tendencies. No, guys, I'm sorry. Be careful who you're listening to, because there's a lot of people on YouTube that are not professional counselors, that are not psychologists, that are not psychiatrists, that are not educated in any way, shape, or form in mental health issues. So schizophrenia and borderline are two completely different issues. So one is a psychotic issue. The other one is a personality issue. Okay, this is why the DMV. Whoa! This is why the DSM is divided up into different sections, because it addresses different mental health issues that are grouped together. So schizophrenia is a brain chemistry issue. It is a psychotic issue. So what happens with schizophrenia is that there is the 23rd genome somehow gets toggled on, and the brain is unable to process information the way a quote-unquote normal brain would. So the chemistry is off. Something is happening that makes it impossible for the person to filter through the information coming in. What ends up happening is, and I've never seen anyone vary from this particular set of symptoms, is that they'll have a devil on one side, literally like evil bad voices on one side. They will have God on the other, and you can tell when they're listening to these voices because their eyes are going back and forth listening to whichever side is talking and whichever one is talking louder, and it tends to be yelling a lot. So oftentimes when somebody is in a full-blown, floridly psychotic episode, you will see them screaming because they're trying to overcome the voices that are going off in their head. Now, that is different than somebody with low self-esteem or abandonment issues that is telling themselves internal stuff. So let me make this very clear. We all talk to ourselves. We do. But we don't have different voices. We don't have a male voice if you're female, or a female voice if you're male. And we don't have Satan, popping in and telling us horrible things. And we don't have God popping in and telling us good things. So, well, okay, maybe you do. But the point I'm trying to make is, when we talk to ourselves, it's us talking to us. And the message may be from our abuser, absolutely, you're not good enough, how dare you, what if, that message may be from them, but it is always in our own voice. So if you are hearing voices that are not yours, there's one of two things going on. Well, there's one of multiple things going on, but the two most likely is you may be in the first phases of schizophrenia. Usually schizophrenia starts as whispering, and it gets louder and louder and louder and louder. Onset is usually around age 16 to 18. Late onset can happen as late as in the 40s. It's unusual. Usually that presents itself by the late 20s. So anywhere between 18 and 28, that's generally, well, again, that's also when your brain is developing and finishes developing. So schizophrenia can happen anywhere between age 16 and 28. Late onset can be in the 40s. It's very rare, though. The other possibility is borderline. bipolar with psychotic features. So when the brain slams up into mania and then slams down into depression, that causes organic brain damage. So if it's rapid cycling, it can cause organic brain damage. And when you have bipolar with psychotic features, that means that when you are in your manic phase, usually, is when you have these voices, thoughts, things that are not quote unquote normal. So you can have bipolar with psychotic features that will give you the voices and things like that. Borderline personality disorder does not feature psychotic voices. It doesn't. It does have low self-esteem. You will be, it borders on psychosis in that the thinking is so disordered, and they do word salad, and it's, crazy thoughts, making associations that are not there, accusing people of things that have not happened, doing bizarre behaviors such as pushing people away so that you abandon them before they abandon you, that kind of thing. So that's bordering on the psychotic thinking, but that does not mean that you are hearing male and female voices and God and Satan and everything else. That is something completely different. So if you are hearing voices that are not your own, strongly suggest you go get a psych eval and see what's going on, because it's either going to be either way, it's going to be a brain chemistry issue. It's going to be either schizophrenia or bipolar with psychotic features or some other psychotic issue. So yeah, that is not it. And it drives me crazy when people say, oh, well, I heard this person on Facebook and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what's their credentialing? What is their credentialing? So, oh, wait, so you're telling me that they're a sufferer and they're giving you this information? Okay, where are they getting their information from? I get my information from the DSM. I get my information from scholarly articles. I get my information from Psychology Today. I get my information from the Mayo Clinic, from WebMD when I have to look up certain, medical issues, because I'm not a medical person. But do you see where I'm going with that? It's like, where are they getting their information from? You don't want to just take things at face value. Listen but verify. Same thing with me. Listen but verify. If I say something, go look it up. Go look it up. Don't just take my word for it. Look it up. So yeah, no, schizophrenia, schizoaffective, those are different issues. So if there are voices going on that are male and female, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you're looking at either schizophrenia or bipolar with psychotic features. That is not a feature of borderline. Yes, it has psychotic thinking, but the psychotic thinking is more paranoid, and it's more word salad, and everyone's out to get me, and you're not my friend, and I'm going to push you away, and you're doing this because of that. Just really bizarre thinking like that. It's not so much, God on one side, Satan on the other, hearing voices, male, female, etc. That is a completely different horse of a different color. So anyway, and you can look up this stuff in the DSM-5. You can pull it up online. You can look up schizophrenia. You can look up schizoaffective. You can look up schizotypal. You can look up borderline personality disorder. It will all be on the Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic is great for those, if you want to just get a snapshot of what these disorders are. So yeah, don't just believe what you're hearing. Now, there is, with trauma, dissociative identity disorder. So people can and do check out, leave their body, split off into different personalities. That is different than borderline. So this is where it starts getting murky and muddy. Borderline personality disorder is based in trauma. Some trauma happened to this person, okay? And when a child is subjected to trauma, sexual or otherwise, if they do not have the support system to help them through the trauma, they can dissociate. So they can split into different personalities to try to cope with the trauma. That is something completely different. That is not borderline, okay? That is dissociative identity disorder. That is another horse of a different color. So that too is born of trauma. So a lot of these things are born of trauma, but that does not mean they're all the same, okay? So they're different. You can have dissociative identity disorder and not have borderline. You can have schizophrenia and not have, whatever else. They're different, guys. They're different. So if you really want to educate yourself on what they are, go look them up. Look up the different disorders, but do it from a reputable source, like the Mayo Clinic or the DSM-5 or the DSM-4, which was the predecessor to the DSM-5. So you want to look these things up to understand what you're coping with or dealing with, or what somebody else is saying. And if they do not have a degree in this, you want to take what they say with a grain of salt, and you also want to verify. Even if they have a degree in this, you want to verify. Don't just take my word for it. Look it up yourselves. Google it. Google it. So I'm one of those people that really enjoys reading scientific magazines, so I'm always reading through psychology and things like that, and this is where I pull my information from. So Google it, look it up, verify, listen but verify. So no, having voices is not a part of borderline personality disorder. There is something else going on. So I hope that answered this question. Alters and multiple personality. Yes, it is to protect the child, because when something horrible happens, like sexual abuse, like very horrible physical abuse, if it's too much, the brain shuts down. It just does. This is part of PTSD, is that you will not, in some cases, you will not remember key events of the abuse or of the trauma, because your brain has gone, oh, no, can't cope, not going to do that. Thanks for playing. We're just not going to remember this. So that is a component of PTSD. Dissociative identity disorder is where we create other personalities to cope with the drama or the trauma or whatever was going on, the sexual abuse, the physical abuse, the mental abuse, whatever. And yes, they can create different personalities that have different sexes and different ages. And yeah, absolutely. I have seen clients that have had dissociative identity disorder, had multiple personalities, different sexes, different ages, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I sent them to a specialist to help reintegrate them, because that is the goal, is to reintegrate all of the personalities into the original personality and help them cope with the trauma that created the dissociation in the first place. So anyway, there is that. I hope that answered the question. Okay, there is that one. All right, so next one. This is a long one. Hang on. Okay. Okay. What do you do with a parent who claims they didn't know what they were doing? That's a tough one. So, hold on. Ignorance can explain behavior, but it does not excuse behavior. So oftentimes what I see toxic parents do is they claim ignorance. I just did what I was told to do. I just did what I knew to do. I just did da 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 da. So it can explain it, but it does not excuse it. And if you do not wish to be around this person, you do not need to be. Now here's the other thing. If someone is truly interested in growing and healing, they will explore their own psyche. They will go to a counselor and they will figure out, why did I do the things that I did? Why did I parent the way I parented? How can I make amends? How can I make this relationship better? The parent themselves will work on the relationship. However, there are some out there that will never do that, and that is something that you are going to have to accept. So bringing it up to them, and making them aware of the problem, okay, great. But if they do nothing about it, or if they sit there and go, well, we didn't know any better and you should just forgive us and blah, 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 blah. Okay, you know what? You're dealing with somebody who's toxic. You're absolutely, because if they were really interested in fixing the relationship, they'd go to a therapist. They really would. And they would do family therapy and they would, make amends. They would work the 12 steps because, working the 12 steps is a good thing for when you have harmed somebody, because abuse, we're addicted to the abuser, so it is just like an addiction. So working the 12 steps and making amends is often a great way to approach it. So with a parent that claims that, they didn't know what they were doing, ignorance is not an excuse. Everybody in the family is saying that I should just forgive them and move on, and that you should just let it be. Well, if the abusers or if the parents have not accepted responsibility and apologized sincerely, that's the sign of a toxic parent, because a true apology is not, I'm sorry, move on. It is, wow, okay, I did not know what I was doing. I harmed you. I see that I harmed you. And I am truly sorry that you got harmed out of my ignorance. Please forgive me. That's a true apology. And then if there is stuff that needs to be worked through, they are willing to go to therapy with you to work it through. If they are not willing to go to therapy to work it through, bye-bye, bye-bye, because that says to me that they're not willing to take responsibility, and it says that they're not willing to deal with the shame that they may be feeling or any other issues that they may be feeling. And that means that they're toxic. So, and you cannot keep bringing it up and keep bringing it up and keep bringing it up and expecting them to change or to get whatever it is you think you need from them if they are not willing to go to therapy. So it's like, okay, hang on. Okay. So when a child brings up something to a parent and the parent claims ignorance, especially if it was obvious that the harm was happening, that parent is toxic. So if they're unwilling to go to therapy, wash your hands, be done. If you were not related to these people, would you have anything to do with them? If the answer is no, act accordingly. Just because they gave birth to you does not make them your parent or your caregiver. If they gave birth to you and then did all of these horrible things to you and then are unwilling to take responsibility and or go to therapy for it, then you know what? You don't need them in your life. Be done. Be done. And bringing it back and demanding an apology is not going to make them wake up. So if they don't wake up on the first time when you say, hey, you did this harmed me, would you be willing to go to therapy to work on this with me? If they say no, be done. Be done. And even if they say yes, if they get into therapy and then they try to flip it around and make it all you, be done. Be done. So you cannot fix them. It's not your job because you did not break them. So I hope that answers that question. Okay. So no, ignorance is not an excuse. It can explain it for sure, but it is not an excuse. So there is that. Okay. What is this one? My question is, how can I get past all the rage I have? Okay, whoa, this is a long one. Okay, so family, the in-laws are a toxic mess, flying monkeys everywhere. Okay. There was a lot of abuse going on. There's a lot of rage towards the in-laws and the family. I obsess about them all the time. My spouse needs to see a therapist on his own, but is too afraid to confront the pain and guilt and shame. Okay, so here's the deal. If you are involved with a spouse who's got a toxic family, you want to go no contact. You absolutely do. And you also want to encourage your spouse to get into therapy because avoiding it is not going to fix the problem. So yes, it is terrifying to confront when your own family is harmful, hurtful, abusive, lots of shame, lots of this, lots of that, especially if there was incest or something like that going on. Then yes, it is terrifying, especially for a man, to confront that issue because society keeps telling guys, which I think is the stupidest thing ever on the face of the planet, that somehow they're not supposed to have emotions about anything and they need to be tough and they need to be this and they need to be that and fuck that shit. So it's bullshit because we're human. So when we have been harmed, no matter by who, we are going to feel pain. If we have been molested, especially by a family member, then we are going to also feel shame because that abuser shoves their shame into us. They project. So they make it our fault, okay? So if there has been abuse, it is imperative that that spouse get to a therapist and start working on the mistaken thoughts and the mistaken beliefs that the abusers, plural, have shoved into their head. So yes, couples therapy can be great to help with, helping that your relationship with your spouse to deal with that relationship, but the spouse themselves has got to get into therapy and start working on that, because if they don't, it's not going to get better. It's just not. So encourage the spouse to get into therapy of their own. If they won't, then that's a huge red flag. Ginormous. If they are in therapy with you in couples therapy, talk about getting him into or her into a therapist with the therapist. It's like, express, hey, this is going to be a deal breaker if you don't start working on you, okay? So, and it's true, because it will, and it'll come back and bite you guys in the ass if this does not get handled. And no contact with the family is going to be imperative. If there was sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, etc. going on, and it's continuing, and they're telling you, oh, you just need God to get over it, get away from them. Go no contact, get with a good therapist, get the spouse in with a good therapist. Buy CPTSD from Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker. Get The Disease to Please by Harriet Breaker. Who's Pulling Your Strings by Harriet Breaker. And The Self-Esteem Workbook by Schiraldi. Those are some really good books to start in on that. There are also good books about incest and surviving incest. So you want to definitely get working on that. You cannot just sweep it under the rug and hope it's going to go away. The problem of it is if we sweep it under the rug, it's like Fibber McGee's Closet. Oh God, I just dated myself. Fibber McGee was an old 1930s radio show that my dad always talked about. And Fibber McGee had this closet that was just filled with crap. And he was always like, no, don't open the closet door. And then the closet door would get open and you'd hear all this clanging and this, that, and the other thing. Emotionally, that's what people who avoid do, is they shove all this stuff into this closet, but dear God, if that closet happens to get opened, it all comes spilling out and it harms people. So you do not want to do that. You don't want to sweep stuff under the rug. You don't want to shove stuff in a closet and shut the door and pretend it doesn't exist, because it's still there. You just haven't dealt with it. But once you deal with it, it goes away, or it lessens greatly. So it's just like when we resist something. Remember how I talk about the pink elephant taking a shit in the corner of the living room? If you resist it and you go, no, not thinking about the pink elephant. I'm not thinking about the pink elephant. I'm not thinking about the pink. I'm not thinking. What am I thinking about the whole time? The pink elephant. But if I go, oh, pink elephant. Okay, well, the pink elephant was abusive and they did a lot of harm and I'm really angry at them. You know what? I think I'm going to write the pink elephant a letter. And then you write the pink elephant a letter, and pretty soon it starts shrinking. And you burn the letter, you don't send it. But if you deal with it, it starts shrinking. It doesn't just sit there and stay huge. But if you start dealing with it and write and burn letters and journal and work out your emotions and realize you did not deserve to be molested, harmed, hurt, beat, spoken down to, etc., 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 then it starts shrinking. And you start working on your self-esteem and you get your confidence back. This is what you have to do to survive. We think that in order to survive that we have to shove stuff away and not deal with it. Nuh-uh, that's not surviving. That's not thriving. That is just hoping to God that that never comes back up. Now, if it comes back up, you can go, yep, that happened to me and I fucking survived. So, you know what I'm saying? So there that is. I hope that answered that question. Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping. That's another good one. So forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about cutting those bonds of anger that are holding you to that other person. So it's a way of keeping that person close to us. It's a very maladaptive way of keeping that person close to us. The anger, the hatred, the revenge, the this, the that. Cut those bonds. Cut those bonds. You don't need that. You don't need that connection to them. You're not going to heal them. They're not going to change. They're not. If they've done these heinous things, they are not going to change. It's not. They are like the scorpion and the toad. They are the scorpion. Scorpions do not change. They are scorpions. They will sting. It's what they do. So Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping, Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach. Another two really great books. So radical acceptance is, okay, this happened, this is what it is, and I accept that it is what it is, and I no longer need to be victim to it. So instead of constantly fighting against it and saying, I'm going to change it, I'm going to change it, I'm going to change them, I'm going to, I'm going to get them, or whatever, you accept it and you forgive yourself and you forgive them and you cut those bonds that keep you tied to them. That is what forgiveness is about. It is not, oh, I forgive you, and then they continue the bad behavior. That's called idiot compassion if you allow that to happen. So you don't participate in idiot compassion. You forgive them and you stay the hell away from them. They are scorpions. So remember that whole story about the scorpion and the toad crossing the river, and the toad gives the scorpion a ride out into the middle of the river, and when they get out in the middle of the river, the scorpion stings the toad, and the toad goes, why did you do this to me? And then the scorpion says, because it's in my nature. So remember, abusers are scorpions. They will not do anything other than be abusers. So unless and until they are in therapy, and if they won't go to therapy, or if they don't admit or acknowledge or validate that they were abusive or whatever was going on, or, this goes back to the whole I didn't know thing. If they are unwilling to work on themselves, then get the hell away from them. Anyone who is not willing to work on themselves have got a huge problem. So there it is. Okay, there is that one. Okay, that one I'm going to answer on Sunday because I'm going to talk about death and the narcissist on Sunday. Let's see what this one is. Okay, money is an obstacle right now. I've gotten so much from the talks. Very grateful. Okay. Oh, okay, so I'm retirement age. I've got tons of talent, yet I cannot find any traction with my creativity. I cannot elicit ideas. It's tough to know what I could be doing, yet not doing it. How does one find or figure out what to do? I've always had this problem from a young age. Okay, so when we've had abusive parents, when we have had parents that were less than stellar, hang on. When we've had parents that were less than stellar, they do not install self-esteem into us. So healthy, normal parents support the child with good, healthy self-esteem. The child has a sense of themselves. The child has a sense of, oh, I can do this. Oh, this is fun. Oh, let's do this. And then you do it. And there's no fear of failure. When you've got toxic parents that have got perfect pictures going all over the place, it will cause analysis paralysis in the child, because the child will always be on the outlook, or looking out for, what if I fail? What if I fail? What if I fail? What if I fail? I can't do this because I'll fail. I can't do this. What if I fail? So the toxic parent, who's the least perfect person on the face of the planet, demands that everybody around them be perfect. And so the kid gets stuck with, oh my gosh, I can't do this because what if I fail, and what if, and what if, and what if. So when somebody is stuck, it means that they are terrified of failing. So here's the deal. I will posit to you that it is not a fear of failure that is your problem. It is the fear of success. So think about how toxic parents are. They are always in competition. Don't you dare be better than me. Don't you dare outdo me. Don't you dare be prettier. Don't you dare be more handsome. Don't you dare be more intelligent. Don't you dare, don't you dare, don't you dare, don't you dare, don't you dare. So there is a non-permission to be creative. And when little kids are creative when they're young, if they've got a toxic parent, the parent will punish them for it in some way, shape, or form. So that is where the stuck comes from. So you've got to give yourself permission to be creative. You've got to just go out and do it. It's a Nike commercial. Just do it. So you got to give yourself permission to just go out and be creative. Just do it. Just create that drawing. Do that painting. Go audition for the play. Go sing karaoke. Go do whatever it is that you want to do. The only thing that's stopping you right now is you. That's it. So it's you and the messages that you got from your parents. If this has been something that's been going on since you were a kid, I will suggest the Inner Child Workbook by Catherine Taylor. Figure out what message you got. When did you get smacked down with your creativity? Who told you it wasn't okay? So the Inner Child Workbook by Catherine Taylor. The other one is Taming the Outer Child by Susan Anderson. So those are two good books to start working on that, because when we are stuck creatively and we're not allowed to be creative and we're not, progressing creatively or whatever, that means that there's some message from mom and dad that's preventing that, and especially if that's been around since childhood. So that's something that's an inner child issue that I would suggest that schema therapy would be really good for that. Figure out what's going on. If you cannot afford schema therapy, then get the Inner Child Workbook by Catherine Taylor, get the Taming the Outer Child by Susan Anderson, and start working on what is keeping you stuck. What message did you get? Was it that you had to be perfect, or was it, how dare you be better than me? So figure out what that is and give yourself permission. So when you do the mirror work and you're looking in the mirror and you're saying, hi, good to see you, have a wonderful day, I give you permission to be creative. I give you permission to soar. It's like, give yourself permission and then see what that inner voice pops up with. Does it go, no, you can't be creative because blah, 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 and then you have your answer. Do you see where I'm going with that? It's like, give yourself permission, do mirror work, talk to yourself, give yourself permission to be creative. It's okay. Go explore, go try, go do painting classes, go do singing classes, go do whatever your creativity thing is. Go take classes in it. That's a great way to start. And as you're doing that, give yourself permission to be competent at it. There you go. All right. So I hope that answered that question. Okay, let's see what the next one is. I've got a few more minutes. Nope, that's not a question. Hang on. Oh, that's not a question either. Ooh, did I get all of these? Oh, I think I answered all the questions. Holy cow. Okay. All right, so those are the questions that I had. I wanted to blast through those before we do this week's video. So Sunday, I will be addressing death and the narcissist, complicated grief, how to cope with a narcissist that is dying or pretends to be dying, because they do medical hoovers as well. So that'll be Sunday's video. Also, I wanted to remind you that the next tour is going to be in Honolulu, and the tour after that is going to be in December in Washington State around Olympia, Tacoma area, and then in January we're going up the West Coast, so and doing California. So anyway, that's it. They should have these events up on Eventbrite. So check that out. Tune in Sunday at noon here on YouTube, and I will be doing Death and the Narcissist and how to cope with complicated grief, how to cope with medical hoovers, how to know the difference, what to watch for, guilt tripping, etc., etc., etc. All right, guys. Well, I hope that answered all your questions, and keep the questions coming. You can always IM me on We Need to Talk on Facebook. Shoot me questions over there, and that's it. All right. Have a great day, and I will see you guys on Sunday, and it will be live on Sunday. So, and get your questions ready. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.